All pain and suffering are false. How about that one? Did you know the truth will set you free? Do you know all pain and suffering? We can even accept our own death. And how about this one? We always hear about people saying people are toxic or they got to set boundaries. Here's another one a lot of people give me feedback on. But I have to look, was I a good son? Was I a good father? Was I a good husband? The point is, the reason I have to look at all these things is because even if somebody else is acting terrible, what we think is terrible towards us, disrespecting us, whatever, it's our reaction. We don't have to accept it. They can only, if they throw something at us, it's only if we accept it. That's the answer. That's the change. It's when you realize if somebody's pushing your button, standing in front of you, you're at work and the boss is yelling at you, when you start to realize and have the conception, when you have that love, tolerance, and patience is our code, right? It comes back to that understanding that we don't have to react anymore from the ego, the self. You can't change people, only yourself. I mean, what more do we have to say? Truth equals ecstasy and bliss. The truth right now is all these little things you're thinking about, you don't have to think about. And I know you think they're the worst and everybody's problems are the worst in the world. Well, think of the worst that could happen, okay? When we're out of the self, we can accept our own death. What could be worse? I mean, in relation to things. But even that, if your philosophy is different and thinks that the party starts up there, it's all in the thinking. People with this perception change. But people say, well, do I have to think all of this stuff? It's all true. It's all true. When we think, the falseness is when we're in fear and anxiety. That's the falseness. How about people, again, some people love to be fearful. Why do they jump out of airplanes, right, with a parachute? Or why do they do all those crazy things or see scary movies, right? We don't have to be fearful. Make friends with your emotions. We don't have to fear the fear. That's fearing the fear is where the main problem comes in, right? It's fearing that. That's the problem, is that the fear of the emotions. And people say they want to work through their anger, fear. I want to cast them out. Those are the lower levels of thinking. We weren't made here to be angry, fearful, and all of this stuff. And when I'm that way, the whole thing is this. You want 50% of it to go away, just listen to what we're saying here. To the day you're fearful, experience the fear and say, okay, I'm going to say, Bob, I'm going to be fearful all day. Today I'm going to be resentful, angry. But it's not true. I'm sitting here worrying about and thinking about somebody else, letting them live rent-free in my head. Can you imagine that? All of that craziness that we do. How crazy are we, right? Like I say, you could be with a person who's acting crazy and trying to get you upset, or yelling or screaming or calling you names. But who's the crazy one when we react to them? That makes us more crazy. Intellect over emotions. Again, we're talking about here, if I have an emotion, if I think it through, and it's really, all is vanity, right? These are typical sayings, all is vanity. Do you believe that? Do you believe all is vanity? Do you believe whenever you try to get more success, getting people to like you, it's vanity? It's all about the self. We're always going to have the momentary pleasure. Momentary pleasure not only lasts a moment. Like I said, I went to a lecture and a guy said he could sit and be just as happy and joyful as a man who climbs Mount Everest, I guess wins the lottery, whatever it is. He could win the lottery every day. Just think about it. When you're out of the self, the joy and happiness just is there. We were created to be that way. Just again, like a little child or puppy dog. The kingdom is in here. It's here. It's here all the time. We ask and look for the answer everywhere and ask everyone. We ask other people in the human experience how to resolve our problems. The more we ask, the more we talk about it, the more real we're making it. If I say I have a problem with my mother-in-law or somebody in my life, I'm saying that it's a real problem. When I'm quiet and get scented, it doesn't matter anymore. All of this craziness and thinking goes by the wayside. I always talk about that one, just sit. I was in a meeting, the nun would everybody go around and everybody had this problem. Hey, how about this one? You're either in the problem or the solution. The problem we know about. I guess everybody's problems are real, right? But are they really real? That's the whole crux of it. If right here, right now, you realize your problems aren't real, listen to that. They're just not real. Again, 10 different people think differently about the same problem. The way you know that is when you tell your 10 different friends about your problem, some of them are saying, oh, okay, that's not, what are they worried about? What's so terrible? Look, it's a perception change. Look, somebody could get divorced and they go around telling everybody, oh, I feel so terrible. I'm so miserable that I have this divorce. Another person who's married will say, oh, that'd be great if I mean, that's not a greatest example in the world, but it's all the perception. They're envious, hey, whatever. And the other way around, people who are in those situations are envious of the people who have what they think is a perfect situation. There's no such thing as a perfect situation, because pleasure never satisfied. If you're looking for the perfect situation, the premise is wrong, right? When I started to realize where the problem was in my head, I started to realize where the answer was. And then I could resolve it. I couldn't resolve it until I knew where the problem was. Just like if you have a car and it's broken down or anything, or if you have a medical problem, you can't fix until you know where the problem is. I went all around searching and trying to change everything outside of me, and then I started to realize where the problem was. Happiness is here. You can't find happiness. That's what we're talking about. Honor the present. 95% of our problems go away when we change our perspective. If we have shelter and food, what else do we need? The very basics of life, they're the ones that can satisfy us, no matter what more you get after that. The thing with the Rockefeller, a rich person cannot be as happy as, say, an animal or a child, right? It just doesn't come from that. That's, a lot of these philosophies in all religions, it's about the universal energy. So when we're talk about the food, the gluttony, the lust, or the momentary pleasures, we're not in the universe. We're in our finite. You want to experience the infinite, get out of those resentments, anger, and fear. They're just false emotions. And people, when I went to, actually, I tell you for years, and I'm not telling people what to do, I went to people, if I had an issue, I'd talk about it and talk about it and talk about it. Never got any better. Did I say this? Ego is unawareness. Ego. Well, ever miserable is, the ego will make us miserable all the time. It's always related to the ego. The world, listen to this, the world has no more power over me. I am free. You get that? People control you. When you get resentful and angry, when somebody looks at you the wrong way, a clerk in the store, somebody cuts you off the highway, when you react, you're being controlled like a puppet on a string. You want to be free? With the food, the same thing. All the corporations are telling you, with the food, this is on the TV, the internet, wherever you drive down the highway. Well, we're the ones to blame because we took it upon ourselves. I know what I want. I want a bigger plate of food. I want more. But do you want to believe these corporations when you watch, your children too, you watch these TV programs with all the sugar and oh my God, read the 50 ingredients in the supermarkets. Even with the children, they place it at a certain height. They see these sugary cereals. And again, you want to know, everybody say, well, what is your diet, Bob? It's one ingredient. Mostly it's from the ground, healthy things from the ground. It's just, and again, if you watch some of the videos I do, I was on like up to over 10 medications. I'm not on any anymore. My weight is where it should be. I feel mentally is a big difference too. It's just the body's reacting to all this poison you put in. A lot of these autoimmune diseases, and I mean, I could go on and on about this, the cancers, the heart disease, the blood pressure, hey? It's all related to this food. And the way we know that is, people say, oh, I don't agree with you. The way you know that is just look around our country. We have what's called the, standard American diet called SAD, or modern American diet called MAD. And you look around the world, and you look in this country, you didn't have all of these. Type 2 diabetes used to be called maturity onset diabetes. People got it when they were older. A lot of these things in my life were reversed by the food. It was putting poisonous gas, like you have gas you put in your car. If it's not good gas, what's going to happen to the engine in the car? It's just there. I mean, the whole thing with the whole answer is just, the problem is it's totally opposite to the way we really think it is. That's the issue. Our thinking, the way we're brought up and what we're told, and it's all about the self. And it's, of course, we live in a material society. We are through the age of science, right? When we have the spirituality, the mind and the body and those things are cured, the thinking, it's through getting out of the self. God didn't create us to be unhappy. Do you get that? He created our body and everything to work perfectly. It's when we put bad food into our cells that happens. But how about bad food up here? Bad thinking, negative thinking. There's no reason to be depressed. What are you going to make somebody else your higher power? If you're upset about, a relationship or even your children, whatever it is. It's understandable, and it's what they call human nature. But believe me, 50% of it could go away when you realize the truth. Like if you have something you're worried about now, it's just sit back and relax. Let it go, because it's not going to matter. Hey, we come from dust, we're going to dust. I mean, how many more quotes do we need? The answer is, it's just letting go, and there's no reason not to, because that's really where the truth is, understanding with all that. But anyway.